This corporate sculpture, which used to stand in between the twin towers, is called the spherical caryatid. It was made by artist Fritz Koenig and was nicknamed the Sphere. Let's have a quick look at Earth's consensus library entry about this piece and see what we can learn. We see that Koenig made this thing in Bavaria, the same place where the Illuminati was founded. The most interesting fact about the placement of the sphere at the World Trade Center Plaza has to be that architect and designer of the World Trade Center, Minoru Yamasaki, intended the plaza itself to be a representation of the Grand Mosque of Mecca, the sphere in particular taking the place of the Kaaba. Ralph Ellis posits in his book Jesus Last of the Pharaohs that the sacred black stone, the cornerstone of the cubic Kaaba, might be the Egyptian Benben of Heliopolis. Considering the ovoid shape of the visible part of the black stone, I wouldn't be surprised if Yamasaki's actual intention was for the sphere to represent the black stone, the possible Benben. Some traditions hold that the stone was conic, and that it was the precursor of the obelisk and the pyramid. We should also bear in mind in this regard that the Great Pyramid has the ratio of pi encoded mathematically in its design. The Benben, the obelisk, the pyramid, the circle, and the sphere are thus all intimately connected. Ralph Ellis further speculates in Eden in Egypt that the processional rituals of the Muslims during the Hajj are directly descended from the rituals involving the circling of the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is why I believe the sphere was set to rotate every 24 hours at the World Trade Center Plaza. It was mimicking the processional rituals at the Kaaba and at the Great Pyramid of Giza. We are now looking at a 1997 episode of The Simpsons, The City of New York versus Homer Simpson. In this episode, we see the twin pillars of Solomon's Temple, and also the sphere representing the cubic Kaaba at Mecca. To put this into perspective, let's trace the evolution of the cuboid shape through the Abrahamic megacults. We find the original sacred cuboid inside the Great Pyramid of Giza in the design of the King's Chamber. The door of the Great Pyramid might also have been a cubic stone. Please view my video The Cuboid Stargate for more information on this subject. No longer being able to perform the Stargate rituals at Giza, the Hyksos shepherd kings and their flock of Aries constellation worshippers took their portable cosmic illumination or Stargate box and left. This is a portable chest found in King Tutankhamun's tomb. Tutankhamun was most likely a relative of Akhenaten and Moses, and therefore the chest quite likely looked like this. The cuboid tabernacle with its cuboid holiest of holies and cuboid Ark of the Covenant stood in for the King's Chamber during the Exodus. This would all culminate in a more permanent replacement for the Giza Plateau, Solomon's Temple, where the Ark again rested in a cubic space, the holiest of holies. At present, the exact history of the Kaaba is a bit of a mystery, but if the Muslim faithful are correct and Abraham was involved, and if the esoteric tradition I follow of Abraham being the first Hyksos pharaoh is correct, then we are yet again dealing with a variation of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza. As Ralph Ellis explains, the first-degree tracing board is a representation of Solomon's Temple. Solomon's Temple being modeled after Giza, this is also a representation of the Giza Plateau. The three pillars being the three greater pyramids of Giza, and the two cubes being the plugs or the doors of the pyramid, and I would further speculate a symbol of the double square of the King's Chamber floor plan. Inside every Masonic lodge you are likely to find the two pillars of Solomon's Temple and the five-pointed or blazing star. It seems highly unlikely to my mind that it is a mere coincidence that these are the same elements we see at play in the 9/11 event. My current belief system views what happened on that day as a mega ritual. When the symbolic pillars came down on 9/11, the holiest of holies was revealed. Isis was unveiled. If we think of the towers as the pillars of Hercules, then what was revealed was the new Atlantis. We find another related and valid symbol system in the Kabbalah. Here the World Trade Center represents the left and the right pillar, the middle pillar being formed by the space in between, and representing, amongst other things, cosmic illumination or higher consciousness. The middle pillar can also be viewed as World Trade Center 7. We then have all three the pillars on the first degree tracing board representing Solomon's Temple, and in its turn the three major pyramids of Giza, evoked during the 9/11 mega ritual. Which brings us to my current preferred metaphor for higher consciousness, the Stargate. We now have enough context to fully appreciate the beautiful mystery. We see Homer Simpson staring down at the concentric circle, bullseye, or target motif very common to symbols of the Stargate, with the sphere right at its heart. Remember that architect Yamasaki intended this object to be a representation of the cubic Kaaba in Mecca. I have attempted to show how the sphere, the Kaaba, and the Benben of Heliopolis are symbolically interchangeable. Synchromistically, we can then say Homer is standing inside Solomon's Temple or the pyramids and looking down at the holiest of holies and the Benben stone. Here's a fascinating sync pointed out by John Valentini and others. Lisa holds up an advertisement in this episode made years before the 9/11 mega ritual. The 9 and the towers themselves forming the mantra we know so well, 9/11.
We were on assignment. We were supposed to kill two birds with one stone.
In Fight Club, Project Mayhem destroys a giant bronze spherical sculpture. This seems an obvious reference to the sphere at the World Trade Center complex.
Trust me. Everything's gonna be fine.
In a pivotal scene reminiscent of 9/11, we see the destruction of skyscrapers and the change of a skyline. In 1904, Crowley would receive the Book of the Law soon after meditating in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. He claimed he had been contacted by a being called Aiwas. Crowley would also use this symbol in his work. Some of its meanings are said to include a reference to the number 77 in Hebrew and a connection to the god Pan. Crowley made this drawing of a non-human intelligence he saw during a ritual. Synchronous 23 has made the connection between Aiwas and the Wizard of Oz, and has further pointed out the similarities between Crowley's grey alien-like drawing and the depiction of the projection of the Wizard of Oz in the film version. This is the film United 93, based on the events of 9/11. A would-be hijacker is making his fake bomb in the washroom of Flight 93. We just saw a passenger in United 93 explaining to another how beautiful New York was and comparing it to the Emerald City in The Wizard of Oz. The much overlooked theory has been put forward on the internet that when we are looking at George W. Bush, we are actually seeing Aleister Crowley's grandson. I have suggested that this video footage of George W. Bush reading The Pet Goat, coinciding with the start of the 9/11 mega ritual, is in fact a dedication of the 9/11 mega ritual to the great god Pan by Aleister Crowley's grandson. Now things get a little weird. This is the 1978 version of The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz. Again we see the Emerald City connected to New York. On arriving at the end of the yellow brick road, Dorothy and her companions go through the circular portal. Through the door we see 3 pyramids. Behind the pyramid shape, in between the pyramid pillars of the World Trade Center, we see the sphere, the representation of the Kaaba, which we have connected to the Benben and the holiest of holies in Solomon's Temple and the King's Chamber. The inhabitants of Oz dance around the sphere in ritualistic fashion. Fashioned in giant letters over the dome of the sphere, we see the word Oz. Oz, symbols of Pan and Aiwas. Seen smack at the heart, where the new Aeon was ushered in, and where the Stargate was opened.